What's your dream workshop look like? Is it big or small? Full of high-end tools or just what you need to do what you love to do? I can't decide. So we're taking two garages and turning them into two very different workshops. One will be full of the best tools we can get our hands on. The other full of homemade woodworking machines. And we'll be filming the whole process so you can learn some useful ideas no matter what kind of workshop you have. I'm Stumpy Nubs, and this is my workshop blog.
Building these lofts is a blast. I mean, the sweating alone is worth the effort. This is where we left off in the last episode. I told you it would look different once I start filling it with wood, and, well, here you go. The reason why I've had to fill it so quickly is because I have to empty these other lofts. These are old and rickety, and I'm surprised they haven't fallen on my head yet. So it's time to tear them down and build new ones. Will be a little bit easier because these are only 16-foot spans. You remember I had to make a beam because it was 24 feet long. This time I can just use a regular 2x6. It'll be plenty strong enough, especially if I use some ties to the ceiling. These lofts are for storing miscellaneous hardwood and pieces of projects that are already cut to length, so they're short. Nothing longer than 3 feet, maybe 4 feet at the most. This is mostly air-dried lumber, so the heat up here will help it to come down to that final moisture level before I use it. Meanwhile, here's a first look at the other shop. This is going to be full of mostly homemade tools. I've already got the big table saw workstation in the center. This does take up a lot of the floor space, but it includes a lot of the tools and machines all in one spot. Mustache Mike has been working on this shop, but I stopped by to help him today. Gotta screw down all this OSB, which is covering up the old stud walls. I don't know why the electrical outlets run uphill. You'll have to ask the mustache. I only cut out one, and it was a pain in the butt. I absolutely hate construction work. Hate! But they gave me a chance to try out the new sliding table on the workstation. Sweet. The stash has a ton of this 1.5-inch styrofoam, and he wanted to use it to supplement the insulation in the ceiling. So we're just cutting it into pieces and fastening it to the ceiling between the trusses. It doesn't look pretty, but it will help keep this place warm in the wintertime. It is Michigan after all. If you couldn't tell from his outlet placement, the stash is a natural-born electrician. I figured I'd better mount the lights. We're positioning these fluorescent lights just above the machines, the areas that we're going to be working in most often. On the way back to the other shop, I made a quick stop at Home Depot. See, this shop is supposed to be about commercially available options, so I picked up a couple of workbenches. These will replace the mishmash of wooden workbenches that we have in the shop already. I have moved this stinking lathe so many times. It's not light, let me tell you. I shifted a lot of this stuff over here when we were doing the loft on the east side. This is the west side. Now I gotta move the stuff back to the east side so I can move the benches into the west side. I'll know more about these things after I've had a chance to fill them up full of tools. They weren't cheap, but they weren't very expensive for toolboxes. Of course, it'll take me about a week to get all these stupid stickers off. Why do they do this? Well, look at that, my little Stanley toolbox matches. I used to have 2 radial arm saws, and I never used either one of them. I'm just going to keep one. I'm taking the base off the newer one, which was made in the 60s. I think it'll fit the older saw from the 50s because they're both DeWalt's. The one I'm keeping was my grandfather's. There's no way I can part with it. He got it in the early 50s and was always going to use it when he retired. He died before he could. So I suppose I'm going to use it to build the things he always wanted to. Now that the lofts are up, I can start placing machines. I had this all planned out in SketchUp, but it never works out that way. I put them somewhere, look at them, decide to move them. Everything will get moved at least 100 times before I settle on it. Look, I'm already moving the radial arm saw again. I do know that one wall is going to be for big machines, and then the other wall is for the benchtop machines. That's the one with the benches. Here's another thing I just can't bring myself to get rid of. This was an old friend's. He used it for his personal locker at General Motors for like 30 years. I don't know who put the Cobalt sticker on it. It's already starting to look like a workshop. Of course, there's so much more to do. Lighting, dust collection, and we gotta do more wiring, a whole bunch of stuff. Plus, all these machines will probably get moved again. See you next time.